Okay, so we're going to start off our trip by flying into Ecuador, which surprisingly enough is right on the equator, right on the equator. And there is a line right there. They actually painted a line. And does anybody know what happens that's different in the southern hemisphere than in the northern hemisphere? When you're just across that equator line, something's different. Somebody knows. Okay, seasons go the opposite way. All right. I think you have some experience, don't you? Where are you from? Okay, awesome. Well, I was about to say all kinds of things about Ecuador. Now I'm afraid to because you've actually been there. I haven't been there. I've been to Costa Rica, which is kind of on the way. But all right, what do you know that happens is different? Uh huh. Interesting. Yeah. Gets dark earlier there. All right. What else do you know? Yes. Okay. Equator. Yes. And they actually apparently have a demo that people will do where they'll go on this side of the line. You do that? I really want to try to make that work. So, if you and she's saying water. She's being very polite. The toilet, when you look in it, it spins the one way, and you go across the line, it spins the other way. It's just interesting. It's totally different. Just going across a line. Isn't that weird? So I got a great picture of the line coming up in a bit. So we would then go, oh, I should probably say, this is about 600 miles scale-wise. You can see that looks really close, but it's 600 miles out in the ocean. It's one of the reasons it's not cheap to get there. I know you're all interested in how much it's going to cost, and I'll get to that part. But here are the islands, and there's 13, as you heard the speaker talking. There's 13 main islands. We would get to see 3 of them. I actually thought that was pretty good because instead of just flying in, sitting on one, and saying you've been to the Galapagos Islands, you actually get to see 3 separate islands. So they're going to take boats in between the islands, and you'd stay in different hotels. The hotels are not like the Ritz, but you've got decent hotels, and they have been pre-approved. You guys experienced the hotels. Why don't you tell them just for a second, Blake, any thoughts? I mean, they weren't awesome, but they were decent. I mean, okay. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. So again, they're not bad. I just don't want to overpromise on. It's not like you're going on the super high buck. Everything's first class, et cetera. It's nice, but not over the top as far as the hotels and stuff. But one of the cool things is you actually get a chance to mingle in with local people too, and that was one of the things I really enjoyed on our last trip. Do you guys remember when we spent the day with the kids? That was that's pretty cool. We got the chance to spend some time with kids from there that were at school, and they sang to us, we sang to them, and it was pretty cool. I'm hoping, I can't promise that, but I'm hoping that we get a chance to spend some time at a school for at least a little while to just get the kids really valued getting that local flavor, what the kids are like in the other country. So, um, all right. So as we're traveling from the big islands that we would hit, this one and this one and which one? Santa Cruz. I can't read my own map. Isabella. Yeah, I think it was San Cristobal. So these 3 islands are the ones that we would hit. And if you just think about that, you can't hit all of the islands. I mean, if you live there your whole life, people go to Hawaii, they usually pick an island, maybe 2. You know what I mean? We're getting to see 3 of these islands, which is pretty cool. All right. So some things we're going to talk about tonight. What's the value in travel? A little bit more about our destination. Who is this company that we go through? We've done our last couple trips through them, and they're a really good company. Our travel partner is EF. The safety aspect of it, and they're very serious about their safety. After having been on their trips a few times, they really, really try to be careful about where they send you and what they have you do, because obviously that it cuts down on travel when people don't come back. So they're really, 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 even overly concerned about travel. Sometimes you can't go here because, and it probably would have been fine, but they know that there's a chance. Anyway, they're very, very safety conscious. And what's included in that price tag and how to get your spot if you decide you want to do this. So some thoughts about what's this worth? Well, first of all, just being able to see all these things is pretty amazing. But if you haven't had a chance to travel and see other parts of the world that are just significantly different, it really makes you think differently. It makes you realize that it isn't all just like Minnesota here, and you have a different perspective about how you are not just, I'm a Minnesotan, I come from Minnesota. You start thinking in terms of I'm an earthling, this is the earth that I live on, and I've seen all different parts of this earth, and it's really cool. So some highlights. We would hit the capital of Ecuador. Is it Quito? Am I saying that correctly? The person who's actually been to Ecuador? Quito? Quito. All right, good. And we'd have a chance to walk on the equator, get some amazing pictures. Not too much better than a selfie that looks like that of you jumping across the equator. And we would have a lot of active stuff. We'd be snorkeling. It has twice down on our itinerary that we get a chance to get in the water and actually swim with the fishes and snorkel. Buses are not just like school buses. They have gotten us really nice, those coach buses, so they're really comfortable for traveling in. In Costa Rica, there was a lot of driving for long distances. This obviously wouldn't be a long distance driving situation because the islands are pretty small. Okay, but everything that they've done has always been good quality, good quality boats, good quality buses, etc. There'd be hiking up the side of a volcano. There would be seeing the giant tortoises for sure. The flamingos, I think, well, they don't keep them in one place. So we can't guarantee you seeing flamingos, but they would try to see flamingos. And there are the famous finches. Can you speak to the finches, Mr. Finch?
Nice. There's all kinds of different species of birds, and not just finches. I'm kind of partial to them. But yeah, all kinds of different seabirds that we see. Amazing opportunity to see wildlife there.
Full disclosure, I'm pretty sure they don't have parrots like this, but it was a picture that was on my slide, so I thought I'll just leave it there. Anyway, there are just amazing opportunities. I think the wildlife would be one of the number one reasons to go on a trip like this. Seeing wildlife that you just can't see other places. I've got some shots of very large tortoises. I thought this one was kind of cute. See the little babies? Anyway, then here's a shot of actual volcano erupting. That's called Wolf Volcano. Now, you wouldn't probably get so lucky as to have it erupting like that. When I've been to the Hawaiian Islands and never seen lava flow. You get lucky or you don't. Hopefully it doesn't erupt when you're walking on it. That's especially unfortunate. Anyway, so we have a chance to just do some cool learning. Mr. Finch and I aren't going to miss the chance to be able to teach them a few things when we're on the trip. The trip is designed to be educational in the first place, but you got a couple teachers who are excited about adding some value. We do some stuff ahead of time. For instance, last year we went to the Lowry Nature Center and did bird banding ahead of time. Did either of you guys get a chance to do that? All right. So did you actually hold a bird? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that was kind of fun. We did one night where we came to school, one night where we and did some learning about that year's theme was kind of survival, and so we talked about some fun ways to survive kind of thing. This year's theme is more just around the amazing wildlife, and so anyway, anything else you'd like to speak to on that?
it kind of depends on the trip. We do have the opportunity to kind of customize it as we're going. So, last year when we were in Costa Rica, we could kind of let the tour guide know what we were interested in. The kids could kind of vote, well, we're really tired from the hike today, so can we just hang out by the pool? They were very flexible about that. So, it's kind of see what's going on and take it as we go. But we do have plans to do lots of things as well. So lots of opportunity. It's really about the experience. So just getting there, seeing the wildlife. There's not going to be heavy like AP biology. They just had a test today in AP biology. So there's not going to be any heavy biology or anything like that, but we're going to be pointing out stuff that's interesting and talking about why this is such a unique place and why it's worth going to and visiting and why it's historically significant as well. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun as far as the learning.
So the company. And when I first wanted to take a trip like this, I went to the principal and said, I want to take a trip. I want to go and take kids on an awesome field trip because I, in high school, got a chance to go with my biology teacher. And I still remember going on that trip, and he took us to some places in Wisconsin. There was a floating bog that we got to walk on, and I still remember that trip, and I thought, I want to do something like that here because we don't have any really cool trips that happen during the school year. And so we took that first trip to Costa Rica partially because of that. But when I first pitched this to the principal, I said, I can do all of it. I can make the reservations. I can do all of this. And he said, no, not a good idea because you don't really know what you're getting into. It's much more complicated than that. And you wouldn't have the insurance policy and you wouldn't have all that, So that's where a company comes in. And the beautiful part about using a company like this is that they do know. They've done it. This is like their most highly rated tour is the Galapagos Islands tour. And they've done it for many years. They know which hotels are safe to stay at. They know where it's safe to drink the water. They know, first of all, they got a $50 million liability insurance policy. They've got, and they make you buy the travel insurance so that's included in the price because what if your kid's the one who breaks their leg, hiking up a volcano in the Galapagos Islands, you want to try to go find the medical care for them yourself. And I think you got the travel insurance to take care of that. So anyway, it's really good to have a big company backing you. And when we had issues, we had our bus break down a couple times and they just right away got on it. They got a new bus. It was just all taken care of for you. You don't have to worry about it because they've done it a million times. So this is their commitment to safety, and they have a 24-hour emergency on-call service. Now, one of the things about the Galapagos is, surprisingly enough, they don't have a lot of cell towers, right? So we're used to always getting service. They don't always have service, but they have somebody with us who's going to have one of those super phones that can always get service. And that's something that would be nice to know is that your kid's going to have somebody in the group. The leader is not us. Neither one of us is really the leader of the group. The leader is somebody who is local, and they can speak Spanish and English, and they've got the super phone, and they've got all the contact numbers to get in touch with the company if necessary. So you've got plenty of people that are watching out for your kids when they're down there. Their peace of mind policy, I'm going to let you read it because it's their policy, but basically it says something to the effect of if something scary is happening in this area all of a sudden, like let's say that it was France and all of a sudden they had a terrorist attack and everybody says, I don't want to send my kid. They have a safety policy that basically says if it's not safe to go there, we will reschedule your trip. Okay, so the Galapagos is not an area like that. We don't, and the scariest thing that happens in the Galapagos is the El Nino. And it comes in and it just wipes out whole populations of birds and that kind of stuff. I checked. The last El Nino was a couple of years ago, so we're probably in the clear for several years. Even if it happened, it would actually be very educational to just see things. It's seeing things that can't survive if they don't have, or it's just like, anyway. I checked already. It's not likely to happen that we'd have that El Nino year that moves in and makes it very difficult for the fish and the birds that feed on the fish and everything to thrive. So this is that global travel plan. And again, as a parent, I've taken a lot of trips and I often don't buy the insurance. Well, this has got the insurance built into it, and it's in the price because we had one kid that bought the insurance and then he got racked up in a hockey game before we left, and he had to have surgery, and they paid. It was all good. They got it. They got their money back and everything. So before he even went on the trip, the insurance kicked in and saved him the cost of the trip. So I think there's a deductible, but it was really small. It was like a $150 deductible or something to get all the money back from the trip. So anyway, I'm not sure exactly what those numbers are now. You could have moved the deductible on me, but I know that it worked for one kid last year already. We've never had anybody get seriously sick on the trip, but if there had been, they have policies in there that would be like, for instance, if they cannot handle the type of illness that you have in the local area, then they will fly you to the place where you can get that coverage. So you as a parent wouldn't have to pay for those incredibly expensive medevac flights. That's part of the global travel plan. So I'm sure that's incredibly boring for the kids, but the parents will understand how valuable that is. So this WeShare thing, I put in this little red thing. Minnetonka is not going to give you Minnetonka High School credits for going on this. But if you want to, this company, EF, is an accredited school, so they can actually give you high school credits. But it's not going to be on your Minnetonka transcript because Minnetonka only gives you credits for Minnetonka classes. And so this isn't going to get you credit for high school for Minnetonka. But there was one kid who went through the process of doing the project that you have to do and getting it graded, and she got an A on it, and she got credits, but those credits are not from Minnetonka, they're from EF company, and so you can get high school and even college credits if you pay extra. They're hooked up with some college that can give you some college credit if you're willing to do a project around it. But again, I'm going to say, I even asked the principals, do you want us to just not even tell them that this is an option? And they said, well, there are some kids that might really benefit from that. We just want them to be clear that this won't be a Minnetonka credit if they want to do it. This is going to be something between them and EF. And I'm not going to be the coordinator of it. I wouldn't be the person who grades the project. That all happens through the company. But if you're interested in that, between you and the company and emailing back and forth, you can get that done. So besides what you pay for the trip, is there anything else? And yes, I'm going to get to the price in a second here. In fact, I'm just going to hit the price. It's $4,050, and that covers a lot of things except a couple things. Here's what it does cover. It covers the airline ticket. It covers, and there's quite a few airline tickets. You get here. It covers the boats. It covers the buses. It covers when you first get off onto the island. There's a $200 park fee that everybody has to pay in cash in American dollars. Well, again, that's part of this. It covers all your food. It covers that travel insurance, and I know that's a big number. I get that, but it is all relative. Our trip last year to Costa Rica cost just over 31, something like that. Is that? Do you recall it being okay? I think it's 3,100 or so last year. Considering how much more remote the Galapagos is, to add another $900 to be able to go to the Galapagos that's not too bad compared to other trips. And there's another trip last year that went to Ecuador in the summer, and their trip actually cost more than this trip and didn't get to actually see the Galapagos Islands. Okay, another, like, just quick Google search, a 2-minute, like, looked for prices. The typical price was around $7,000 per person to go to the Galapagos if you want a guided tour. That's what this is. You get a guide, and you got all your food included and stuff. So honestly, after I looked at a few prices, another one. My pastor was in Ecuador on a missions trip, and they were offered the option, if they wanted to add on a trip to the Galapagos. The price was going to be $10,000, and that was going to be $5,000 per person, and that was starting in Ecuador. You know, we're starting in Minnesota, and so it's not cheap to get there, but it's an amazing, amazing place. So 9 days. It's a 9 day trip, and that's really good actually because it perfectly coincides with Minnetonka's spring break. And so you leave basically the day after school ends on for spring break. You leave that Saturday, and you fly out there, and then you come back, and you come back right in time to come back to school. You don't miss a day. Now, if you were to uh, sleep in that day and have your parents call you in, I wouldn't be surprised if a few kids did that. But this wouldn't be something that would be approved by the school. So anyway, I personally can say that that this 9 day trip, by the end, you'll be ready to come home at the end of 9 days anyway. Even if there was an option to go longer, it's kind of exhausting to just be going place to place to place. So 9 days was just great for our Costa Rica trip. So I believe it would be an amazing 9 days. So beyond that $4,000, there's spending money. I was amazed at the difference. There are some kids that got by on our last trip spending like $10, and there was other kids that spent like $100 a day. If you want to find money to, find things to spend money on, of course you can find things to spend money on. There is some shopping opportunities, but that's up to you and how much you want to spend on spending money. There is a strong recommendation that you budget about $10 a day. That's going to be called $90. I'm going to say realistically about $100 per day, not per day, sorry, $100 total for the trip, that I would strongly recommend that you set aside in your head for tips, because the people that are working for us, like at the restaurants, they deserve a tip just like you would give a tip. You know what I mean? And tips are not part of this that is covered. And so we need to tip the people at the restaurants. We need to tip the guides that actually walk us around places. When you go into the national parks, there's an expectation that they get a little bit of a tip. And again, we'll take care of all the tips. If your kid wants to go, if you just write a check for $100, and we will take care of the tipping. We'll even show the kids a lot of times we'll give the kids the money to give to the person, but if we take care of the tip money, it's safer. Because kids really have a hard time knowing, like, how much should I give them? I mean, what's appropriate? And sometimes they give way too much, and sometimes they don't give any when they should. And so we typically in the past have taken the tip money. So I just want to be upfront that I don't want to be the guy who said it's going to be $4,000 and that's it. We would ask for another $100 towards tips. And of course, you have to have a passport. We did check. There is no visa required, which is nice. Another thing that's nice about Ecuador travel is that it's all in American dollars. They actually have their currency is the American dollar. Unlike in Costa Rica, where they had their own currency, they don't even have their own currency. It's the American dollar. So it's really simple. There's no worried about the exchange rates. That's just the American dollar. So there is, of course, places where you can go if you're a tourist and spend 5 times as much as the locals would spend in American dollars, So, but again, the guides are pretty good at getting you to the spots that are the right spots to spend your American dollars and not get gouged. So, all right. So I wish this was just like free and I could just bring everybody who wanted to come, but there is that whole money piece. But honestly, when I looked at the price and how comparing it to other trips that I've taken, I looked at taking my family on a trip to Costa Rica, and it was going to cost me about $3,000 per person when you include everything, all the things in between, and all the activities, and all the park fees, and all the food, and everything. This isn't that much more, and it's so much more remote, so expensive to get there. So, and I know some of you guys are thinking about having adults come along too. And the adult price is higher than the kid price, which is kind of counterintuitive. You would think that the parents would be able to come along for less because you're more responsible, but actually they get part of their deal is they get cheaper prices because they're bringing students, and so they get a student rate in a lot of different places, and then they don't get the student rate on the adults. So the adult price is higher, and I'm going to refer you to the website because I can't remember exactly how much that price was for the adults, but it's a little higher than for the kids.
Is it over 5?
No. I can get you the exact number, but it's literally going to take me. Just wait till afterwards.
Okay, just look at the ballpark.
Okay, yeah, a few hundred more. All right. Next one is on the passports. This is one that a lot of people don't know, but your passport has to be valid for 6 months after your return date. So in other words, let's say you got a passport and you think, oh, it's not going to expire until a month after you're back. We're fine. No, actually, they won't let you on the island. It's weird, but if you travel with a passport, your passport date expiration has to be let's make sure I say that right. Yep, 6 months after our return date. Now, return date is basically the beginning of April. And so that would mean 6 months from then is when your passport can expire. So in other words, if your passport's close to expiring, just get the thing renewed. You got plenty of time. If you were going to do this trip, you do it now. And if you wait much longer, you'd probably want to pay for expediting because if you're sitting there and you don't have your passport and it's like 1 week before the trip, you're going to be really paranoid. So if you're going to have any passport issues, make sure you check them over early. And anybody that signs up, we will be bothering you about that early because we just don't want any chance that you could be standing at the airport watching us leave. So again, this is a list of everything that you get. I already went through most of it. The other thing, don't forget, you've got two adults who really care about your kids and know about high school kids going along with, and that it's worth something. You know, you've got somebody who's there in locus parentis. We are in the place of the parents, and we will do our best to protect them and watch out for them, and that's worth something too. You don't have to pay that all in one gigantic check. If you want to just kind of save a spot and then save up some money to make the rest of the payments, I believe I'm going to round it to $100. It's 95, I think, but it might be $100. Will hold a spot, and that is a non-refundable $100 though. So if you decide to pull the trigger on the 95 or $100, I'm not giving you exact numbers because I'm not be collecting any cash tonight. This will all be done through the website. If you decide you want to sign up, I'm going to give you the sign up link for it. And last time there was like not five. There's a bunch of people signed up in the first 24 hours. So I'm going to give you that before you go, and I'm going to give you plenty of chance to ask more questions and stuff too. But all of the things I'm telling you, I'm giving you my best, closest estimates that I can give you, but you can trust exactly what you see on the website to be the right prices, and feel free to be in touch too. Email me if if you're seeing something you're not understanding, ask. I'll be glad to look into it for you and get more info. Let me go down here. So here is our link. It's the same one. It's a lot bigger on a different slide. And I want to give you a chance to ask questions. So while people are writing down this link up at the top here, it's eftours.com/that. That's how you get a spot. We priced this as a private tour, meaning that we have to get 15 kids. And if we don't get 15 kids, the price will actually be like $100 higher. If we only get like 6 kids, it'll probably be like $200 higher. But let me tell you, from experience on my very first trip, the private trip thing is a really nice thing. Because the very first trip I went on, we were with a group from North Carolina, and they were generally really nice kids. But there was a few of them from the other school who had some pretty bad manners, and it was difficult because they weren't from our school, and there was a little bit of their school versus our school kind of dynamics. We decided to make it a private tour last year, and it was wonderful. It was just our kids, just us getting on a bus. Nobody deciding like their kids are always sitting in the front, or like none of their kids and our kids. It's just all of us, and it's just a Minnetonka trip. They do offer the option, if we only have a few people that want to go, that we can make it not a private tour and then get merged with another group, and usually it's fine, but I'm hoping that we have at least 15 people that want to go. And judging by the room tonight and judging by all the people who told me I couldn't come tonight but I'm very interested, I think we're going to have more than enough. In fact, I'm more worried about the other end, where we might have to say no to people beyond what we can hold. We know that we can hold up to 24. If we go beyond 24, then I'm gonna have to say I'm sorry. I'll check into it. I'll see what I can do, but I can't promise anything if we get more than 24 people who want to go. So I know there's got to be questions out there, and I'd love for my kids from past trips to be able to answer some questions too. So if you have a question and you want the honest truth, ask the kids that went last year. They know. They'll tell you. So I tried to wrap it up on the quicker side so you'd have plenty of time to ask questions. So don't be shy. I will repeat your questions for the benefit of the video. Go ahead.
I wondered about sleeping arrangements. Are they 2 kids per room? How many?
Good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So the sleeping arrangements. You guys experienced this. There were, it really depended. When we rolled up to a hotel, you do not, if you pay the standard price, you do not get your own bed in your own like separate room. You don't get like a single. You're grouped in with the other kids. And honestly, I think that part of the experience for the kids was being in a room with a bunch of other kids. That was part of the fun of it. Now, there were kids, why don't you tell them? How often did you get your own bed versus sharing room? And by the way, if you want, if you're like, I need my kid to have their own bed every single night, it can be in with other kids, but I want them to have their own bed. I believe the price tag is another $300, and you can guarantee your kid never has to sleep in the same bed with another kid ever. Okay, so you can pay extra for that, and 2 kids did last year, and then it was simpler for them. They always knew which room they were in because they were in the single room with, it was actually a double room, but each kid had their own bed in a double room. And you can pay extra and get that. But tell them, what was your experience like as far as sleeping accommodations?
3 of the nights I had my own bed. But when we did have to share beds, it was like a queen or king, so they were really, or mostly king, so they were big, and it wasn't an issue at all. Nobody I talked to had an issue. And one night we had like almost all the girls were in the same room. So it was like a huge room. It was like a mini. There was like a kitchen.
Like a suite.
Yeah. Suite. And so there were 2 separate rooms, and you had to share a bed. But it always worked out like great, and no, there's no problem that anybody at least told me about.
And I'd say girls have less heebie-jeebies about sleeping in a bed with another girl. Guys, not so excited about it. But I don't know. Give me your perspective. What was it like for you?
It was fine. The beds we had were big enough size. I had my own bed a few nights. I think the guys I was usually with in a room, we kind of rotated. We had our own bed, but it worked out okay.
Okay. Would you, if you had it to do over again, pay the extra money to have your own bed every single night? Okay. Come from his mouth, he wouldn't pay the extra money to have his own bed every single night. So it was one of those things that it wasn't that bad. And I'm just summarizing for the kids, for the people that couldn't hear that at home, that there was 2 or 3 nights where they got their own bed, other nights where they had to sleep with somebody, but the beds were big, and so it wasn't that big of a deal to sleep in a bed with another kid. That's part of the way that they keep the cost down. So there's got to be more questions, and I know it's warm in here, and I will let, if anybody wants to go, you can go. Yes.
What's kind of the guy-girl ratio?
It's a good question. On my first trip, it was more girls than guys by a huge margin. But on our last trip, what were we at? Like a 2-to-1, girls versus boys?
There's more girls.
There was definitely more girls than guys, but I'm not sure it was a 2-to-1. But I'm guessing, well, how about this? In the room tonight, some percentage of you are going to be going on the trip. I don't know what it is. Okay. How many of you are in a family, and if everybody raises their hand, this should work. How many of you are in a family that is representing only a girl who would go along? All right. How many of you are representing a family where it would be a guy who would be going along? All right. How many are representing a family where maybe there'll be a female and a male presence? All right. So it looks pretty darn even right there as the ratio in the room. So basically, probably be pretty similar amounts of guys and girls. But if I had to guess, if I had to bet on it, I'd say there'd be slightly more girls than guys on the trip total. And also less seniors. That was another thing I noticed. It's usually more the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors in similar numbers, but less seniors. I don't know, for seniors, maybe there's just more kids that plan a big senior trip with all their buds, and this maybe doesn't fit into that as well. I'm not sure exactly why that is. So, more questions? Yes.
Flight, so flight from Minneapolis to.
The flight from Minneapolis. To be honest, I'm not sure. I guarantee you it's not direct to Ecuador. There's going to be a stop somewhere. My guess would be last time we went through Atlanta. That's a huge hub. I bet you we'll go through Atlanta and then maybe Atlanta to Ecuador. That's possible. But there's going to be at least one stop along the way. That's the scariest time for us chaperones, is when we got all the kids in an airport and all of a sudden, where is one of them? Oh my gosh. It's not, you're not going to lose one on an island, okay? But in the airport, oh my gosh, that was stressful. So anyway, but
Know what airline?
don't know the airline. In fact, I won't know it until like literally 30 days before is when they'll give us our flight information. They don't book it until pretty late. They have certain numbers of seats locked in already, like, because they want to make sure but they do everything they can to try to save money on the airline tickets. So they're very strategic about but bottom line, about a month out, I'll know exactly what our flight times and all that stuff is.
The parent goes with, you do all the same itinerary and everything?
Yes. So for parents that go with, you're gonna basically what usually happens is you're just in there with everybody else. You're just like one of the chaperones, just like me and James, and you're there. And realistically, you'll hang out with us more because your kids are gonna want to hang out with the other kids. And just know, kids, if your parents want to come along, don't worry, they won't be with you all the time. But they'll be there, but they won't be like, sitting right next to you on the bus kind of thing, because usually the adults kind of clump together and the kids kind of clump together. On my very first trip, I saw a lot of father-son combos, or mother-daughter combos, or even mother-son combos. There was a lot of that, and it was really kind of nice. They got a lot of time together. I didn't see any like, ooh, mom, stay away kind of stuff. They were really nice to their parents, and it was sweet and nice. So, but if your kid says, "Mom, don't come," then you should probably listen to them.
If 24 children,
That's what I was going to ask.
Go ahead.
if you hit the upper limits of students, is there a limit on the amount of parents?
I guess I wouldn't worry about that until we're getting close. I will send out an email once we're getting close to that number. That's, you better decide now or you might not get a spot kind of thing. The number that we have is not a total for just students. It's a total spots on the trip. There's not like separate student versus adult slots. So if we hit, and again, I'm not saying that we couldn't take a group of 30. It would just be, I'd have to make sure with the company, because they only have so many slots to be able to take people to the Galapagos Islands. Like literally, the Galapagos Islands limits tourism. So we can't like just say, well, we're going to bring 70. Well, sorry, we haven't got 70 spots, So, and I don't anticipate, my gut says that with this room plus the people that are in, I think we're going to easily make how many people we need, but I don't think we have so many that at least anybody in this room that has a chance to sign up early is probably not going to have an issue. I'm more worried about the people who don't hear about this trip until you guys go home and start talking, and then some kids will be like, hey, I think I'm going to go, and they convince their friend, and they call at the last minute, and then, oh, sorry, we just hit 24 last night. You know what I mean? So if you're here tonight, you already know about it. I wouldn't worry about you. It's the people that find out at the last minute that might get sorry. All right. There's kind of a lull here. That doesn't mean that we're done. Usually there's a few more, and again, you feel free to stay afterwards and talk, because last time I talked more than this, and then I decided this time to get it over with quicker and give more time for questions. So we'll get you out of here in an hour or less. Yes, and you can stay if you want.
They don't have any shots that they have to get before.
It's a good question. I looked at the website, and they're just like in Costa Rica. You didn't have to have anything. There's no required shots, but your doctor should have the final call, because I've learned enough to know that there's different needs with different people. Some people some people's kids or some people who are going on this trip are going to be in a more fragile situation. Your doctor might know, ooh, for you though, they might not be getting shots, but you, I'm going to recommend you get the typhoid shot or the whatever. And a fair number of the kids did get a typhoid. I think it was typhoid. Was it typhoid? Did you get a typhoid? Well, I think you should have got a typhoid. Well, anyway, I got a typhoid. They told me to get. So anyway, there was a few shots that were recommended. I took one of them. My wife strongly recommended not taking the oral version of anti-malaria. I think it was because she said it was awful. Anyway, there's a shot version that doesn't have any. Well, I don't know. It probably depends on the person, but I'm smart enough now to say I can't promise you anything. You should talk to your doctor because it probably depends. Some kids are probably going to go and not need anything. Other kids are going to probably be recommended for them. They need 3 shots. Yes.
This is speaking from personal experience. When I went to Ecuador 4 years ago, I had to get yellow fever, tetanus, and typhoid, I think, shots, but and malaria pills, just because it could be different because I went in the summer, so the mosquitoes are more active.
And you went to the rainforest.
Yeah, I went right in the rainforest, so there could be a potential for shots, but usually.
Thank you for speaking to that.
But you had to get something. What did you get last year? Typhoid.
Got a typhoid shot? Okay. So, again, I'm going to just defer to your doctor's recommendation on that. But I did have kids that had dramatically different recommendations even from their doctors. So it really does, I'm sure, depend more on the kid. And I know that, or at least a lot of the Ecuador trips involve going into the Amazon jungle, which I got to talk to you about sometime because I haven't been there, and that would be really cool. But that probably has different needs than the Galapagos Islands too. So.
It might vary if you go to your regular doctor versus travel doctor.
Ah.
We went to the travel doctor, and they'll whip out the map, and they'll be like, well, which city are you in? What's your altitude? And then they'll scare the heck out of you.
So this mom is saying that the travel doctors sometimes have different opinions than the regular doctors, but they'll probably know more too. So there might be some shots involved, but it's not too rough. I mean, go to the doctor once or maybe twice and get there was an option to take a series where I could take 2 shots and then I could be immune for like 5 years or whatever. So anyway, you might have to go up to the doctor twice if you want to do that.
But the tour isn't required.
The tour does not require you to do anything, but it does recommend that you check with your doctor to decide what you want to do. So.
Weather like there than that time of the year?
Good question. I checked. The equator tends to stay quite warm, so it's hot. But that we are going at the time when the rainy season is just clearing up, which is nice. So the rainy season should be done. Not to say we won't get any rain, but it's not like we're going during monsoon season or something. That's a very good question. I did notice on travel websites about the Galapagos that they specifically said that unless you have a certain type of animal that you really want to see, there are some migratory animals, of course. If there's a certain type of seal that you really want to see, then you better be careful. But otherwise, it's just awesome to travel there year-round.
That's typically the March to early April. It's the warmest time, but it's not super warm there. It doesn't get they're saying highs maybe into the 90s, and then water temperature is almost at that time as well. So
It did say for snorkeling we'd be there at a great time, and there's 2 snorkeling on the itinerary right now. Those things do change. Again, if it gets like super windy, they change on the fly. They're like, we're not, just because it said snorkeling, doesn't mean we're going to snorkel if it's not safe. And then they'll try to move the snorkeling to a different day, and they want to make the kids happy, but they're also super safe on. It may have said day 3 we were going to snorkel, but if it's not safe, then it's going to be day 5 or whatever. So. Well, I can tell you that I have had so much. These trips are exhausting. When you are on this trip with kids and they're up until, how late kids stay up, and it is exhausting. But yet, I keep going back because I know the kids have such an amazing time. It really is. It's a neat opportunity. I can say that every kid that has gone on this trip has none have ever expressed that they were unhappy that they had gone, and I've got tons of them that keep coming back and talking to me. Some of the groups have gotten together afterwards. We've gone out on Lake Minnetonka and had a get together post trip, and some of the groups are still, they've made friends that they still have kept over a long period of time. So I encourage you to consider going. It's an amazing experience. I'm going to leave you with one last, if you decide you want to go on the trip, there is going to be one hoop you would have to jump through, and that is we need to talk to one of your teachers. Now, you can sign up for the trip, but James and I, have cancel rights for anybody if we can't get a teacher to say that you will be safe on this trip. In other words, let's say that somebody signs up for this trip and they are very imbalanced and they have hurt other kids, and if I'm not going to bring you along to a foreign country if I think there's any chance that you are going to be unsafe around other people or unsafe around yourself. I need a person to vouch for you. So if you decide to sign up for the trip, you are going to have to give me a name of a teacher that I can talk to, that I can then ask questions about, does this person seem to be safe? I have never had a kid who couldn't come up with a teacher who could say that, yes, this kid will be safe on your trip. Okay, so I wouldn't worry about that, but I do want to be clear that I do need to check into everybody who wants to come on the trip. And I'm not going to pick the reference for you. I'm going to let you tell me I should talk to who. And it's Mr. Smith, your science teacher? Okay, I'll talk to Mr. Smith, your science teacher. So if you can't find one person who will say good things about you, then we'll have to talk more. Any other questions? All right, so action plan as you leave. I encourage you, if you haven't already, get that website loaded up, that one that's up there. And if you decide you want to sign up, you can pay the first $100, and that does guarantee you a slot out of those 24, because it'll be first come, first served, other than if you get rejected by not having anybody who will vouch for you, then you got a spot. And it is non-refundable, the $100. And I will warn you also, to be fair, the remaining balance comes pretty quickly because the trip is coming in just a few months. They want it to be paid. They're going to have a per month. It's like a little over $1,000 a month that you'd have to pay. If you sign up for a regular payment thing, they can take it out in equal payments, auto draft out of your checking account if you want to do that. If you want to make up your own schedule, because don't have the money now, but I think I will in a couple of months, you can do a manual payment plan. So they got options, but I would go home, talk obviously with your family and see if this is really for you, and then pull the trigger and then try to talk to your friends, because most kids that went last time had, no, I shouldn't say most, many of the kids had a friend that came with them. But would you say that from your experience that people were pretty open to other kids who came and didn't necessarily have friends?
Oh, yeah, I had friends that went with me, but then I became better friends with other people.
There you go. That's a great quote. I'm going to repeat it for the video. So she came with friends, and she met friends that became as good or better friends. So it's usually a neat experience to share, and when you share a neat experience with a whole bunch of people, you tend to bond with them a little bit. So, all right. Thanks for coming tonight. Feel free to stay and ask me questions.